lunch or dinner, because I know some of my Aussies probably might want to take a nap or want to have a food for 30 minutes, so we'll do that then. But please don't do it now. This is too valuable. All right? In your chairs, create some energy like you're anticipating something great's going to happen. So you're about to meet Brad and Marv. You're going to see a little bit of, understanding these elements, but also I'm going to show you a tool that I want you to pay attention to that can heal any relationship. It's called a Ponopono. I'll explain it in the video. It's a Hawaiian tool. It sounds ridiculously simple, unbelievably powerful, and anybody can do it. So you're not watching just to learn about these people. You're watching to take notes to see if you can anticipate what's different, which of these elements are in each of these people, what's really going on, and then I want you to see this healing tool because we're going to use it together. All right? Roll the film. Tell us, who are you judging? Who are you stressed with? Who are you pissed off with? And then what did you figure out?
My wife can be a real bitch sometimes.
And you're such a sweetheart, always. Okay? Can you be an asshole?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm glad to see that. So tell me, which one are you at your core?
I really think I'm fire.
You're fire.
I think I'm fire. I think.
Okay, good. Very optimistic?
Slightly.
Which one is your wife?
She is wood, which is ironic.
Why is that ironic?
Because I wrote a really cool note that said you can't have fire without a base of wood.
That's right.
And I depend on her for everything.
Give him a hand for that. That's awesome. No, give him a hand for that. That's awesome inside. Woo! It's totally true. Wood feeds the fire. And by the way, fire with no structure, my wife's beautiful fire. The other day we're doing a speaking component, and when I first met my wife, I'm a syntactician. I know that sequence creates meaning. The dog bit Johnny. Johnny bit the dog. I use the same elements. You put them in a different order, totally different experience, especially if you're Johnny. Right? So when I first met my wife, she's, by the way, is a phlebotomist. She knows blood. She's an acupuncturist, right? She's a nutritionist. She has all these amazing skills. So when I first met her, I wanted to share her at one of the seminars I was doing because I thought she was genius. Regardless of my love for her, she's really a genius in what she does. She really knows it. I know a lot about health, but I thought she was brilliant. So I said, let me put you in my seminar. And so she goes, I don't know how to do it. Let me help you. So I put a whole structure together of how to do that. Right? A syntax, a sequence. And she was like completely overwhelmed because fire just wants to explode and share whatever comes, right? And it was a disaster because she tried to do it and she felt so hemmed in, unable just to express, that she felt like I'd abandoned her and shit. I was like, and I still hear about this story. It's from 40 years ago, 30 years ago. I still hear the fucking story. How I abandoned her on the stage at the time. I was trying to make sure she had her own experience. People didn't judge her based on relationship with me. They have their own direct experience, how brilliant she is. But what I've learned is, my job is to create the structure and the components and make all that shit happen. And she can pop in and in where she wants to come back and in. But it's not always easy because it comes out of nowhere.
I'm a very big fire. Like massive fire.
Yes.
More like a wildfire. So.
Okay.
And it's amazing because I can go have really bad breaks and then bounce back super quickly. So, but in this scenario with my wife, what I would love to hear or understand better is this massive fire of talent that I have can be super destructive.
Yes.
So
when you get in your puppy heart, when you get in the stress mode, it can be very destructive because there's so much energy in it. How many follow? And so it can blaze a lot of people, can burn a lot of people. So what needs to be done? Well, if you look back at the chart, what's the dimension? What's the destiny of fire?
Earth.
And what's Earth about?
Being a good neighbor, a loyal sidekick, teamwork.
Peacemaker, collaborator, contributor, lover. Now notice, that doesn't appeal to him very much because he's so used to just being explosive. You see his face? Like, fuck, that's what I'm going to become? That's my destiny? That's my date with destiny? Fuck you, I'm going home. I if that's really your destiny, but I know one thing is you have to claim those parts of yourself because you're out of balance and you're hurting people you don't want to hurt. True or false?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yes.
And you really do care, or you wouldn't get those tears in your eyes, right?
How did you do that? Did a little circle and then bam!
Well, I'm wood, so you can burn me, but I'm also fire. But I want you to notice, I have as much fire as anybody. It's my second, but listen, it's like an entrepreneur. I'm really more of an artist. But I have 54 companies who do $6 billion in business, and I'm probably as successful as anybody in financial business or any other business you can see. But it's still my number two. Because why else would I be here 12 hours a day? This doesn't make any economic sense. I make more money while I sleep. But I'm not in it for that. I'm in it for the mission. I'm in it for the impact. So I have to adapt what I'm doing. If I let all my fire just go, half the people probably fucking quit. My fire is stronger than most people's. Their fire is number one. I got a wife. Can you imagine? Both of us in fire. You can imagine what things were like in the beginning of a relation. Holy fuck, we had some fights. I mean, you see her, she seems like this sweet, beautiful person. She is the sweetest, most beautiful human you ever meet. But holy fuck, does she have some fire in there. Two fires going at each other, we almost burned up the fucking buildings. My wife, by the way, always lights fires throughout the fucking house. And I had one house that burned down years ago, so I'm going blowing out all the shit she lights fires on. She's got candles. I love candles, but she puts them like on paper and shit, you know. One day she put out the fire and threw it in the plastic bag, and the thing lit in fire. She goes, I didn't know. What could you not fucking know about fire and paper? But fire just burns, right, brother? Burn, burn, burn. So that heart in you, how many saw his heart just now? Right? That's a beautiful thing, brother. That's a vulnerable, beautiful thing. That's why you will shift this. But listen, you can't change something when you're unaware of it. So don't beat yourself up about it. Just go, could he have done anything else based on what he believed back then? No. Does that mean he should continue to do this? Fuck no. Now he's educated. Now he has new options. And if he cares, he's got to adapt. And it's going to take a little work. But it'll be worth it. Because he'll become more well-rounded and you will achieve more and enjoy more if you use more of those parts. And the way to make use of those parts is start valuing them in other people. And as you value them in other people and acknowledge them, you'll value them in you and they'll open up. And then you'll be a better man, a better husband, a better friend, a better contributor, a better business person. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good. So what are you going to do with this beautiful woman in your life?
So the question was, so imagine the wife's wood is a massive, like, big log cabin. It's mansion in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Got it.
And
Now we got the metaphor going. Check it out. Okay, go ahead. I want to hear the rest of this metaphor.
and as a massive fire, recently you just kind of just burned it all down.
Yes.
How would you rebuild that wood? How would you rebuild that
That's a
cabin?
great question. Now you tell me the answer because you're smart enough to know.
A lot of work.
This is how fires think about work. A lot of work. I just want to party, motherfucker. I want to burn. A lot of work. Fuck.
I don't have any calluses. I don't know how to build a house.
I'd love to just mention one thing. For myself, when I found that, or when we learned this understanding, when I did, with tone, it was like I thought of ourselves in an earlier year, and I thought of how I used to burn wood. And I love this man. You know, I love him. I don't want to burn him. I can still go unconscious. It's not that I'm perfect. It's not that I can't blaze, but I do attune.
You are perfect.
No, I love you, honey. But you know, you attune, you catch yourself. You catch yourself because that's what love does. You know, if we're in our mind and we want to dominate and we want to be in control, or we want to be righteous or right, you know, or just blaze out of control, there's beauty in actually honing that fire as well. So it can actually serve something. Because then it makes embers and it warms the wood, you know, rather than just destroying the wood. It was unconscious and it was an inefficient way to love, never mind live. And so those distinctions with that awareness alone, I notice, like, I'll catch myself now. And it's just like, you know what? I'm blind right now. I'm crazy right now. Can I just have 10 minutes? and I'll step away and I'll go, it sounds crazy, I'll go have a drink of water, I'll brush my teeth, I'll come back. And also just, it's so crazy because in life, like we get in a relationship and yet we're in it and we go so unconscious. It's like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry in this moment. I was blazing. I was so unconscious, honey. I'm sorry. Can we just reset and start again? And it's amazing because what that does is it turns the volume down of the insanity and the charge. And there's just like, and your heart can lead in that moment. Because we're not out of control of the fire, my dear.
She's good.
So, if you hone your fire, if you learn to direct your fire, you'll achieve more and you'll enjoy more. All it is you've been a fire has no discipline. A fire with no discipline will hurt. And discipline doesn't mean hard work, honestly. When you have that much energy as a fire and you hone it, it's actually easier. But what you need to do is you need to go and apologize to her in a very direct and sincere way. Because human beings have forgotten how important it is to say, I'm fucking sorry, and mean it. And we're kind of afraid to do that because we're afraid I'm sorry and then someone's going to continue to rip you. And she might, because feminine energy needs to get out and expressed. And she's got wood in her anyway, so she might give you more anger. And you're like, oh, fuck, why do I do this? But if you don't run, John Gray's a friend of mine, but this whole thing of run to your fucking cave, I harass him mercilessly about it. It's bullshit. Or placating her or just saying what she wants to hear. Every woman knows when you're fucking placating her. There's no woman you can truly placate long term. They have spidey fucking powers. They know everything that's fucking going on here. Right? But if you were to go to her and say, I just want this program, and I never fucking realized that I have judged the parts of you that I cannot live without. And I've judged the parts of you because I've judged them in me, because I've made them wrong, because I think it's going to mean I have to work or do something that doesn't feel so alive. But you give me so much life. I couldn't live without you. And I'm here to apologize for the things I said. There's stupid fucking things to say. I won't say those anymore. I'm a fire. When I met Sage, I grew up in an environment, as you can see, I never used difficult language at all, or gross language. I'm very articulate.
You're not a fire, Tony. I'm the fire.
But I grew up in an environment in the streets where I was 5'1" and guys came at me that were my size now, and I learned intensity with language to do it, and also my parents used it. And so it was natural for me to use that kind of language as a way to produce intensity, or when I was feeling intense, to express it, because saying shoot didn't fucking do it. It felt insincere, it was bullshit. And so I would use this language, but when I was with her, I remember at a time, I was so pissed and so angry, and I used very colorful language towards her, and I worship her and adore her. And I could see it crushed her, right? And it's like, this I will never do. And so I vowed I'd never do it again. I never have. I do not use any of that language ever with my life, ever. And it's because I want her to feel loved and adored, because that's what it really is. But I had to ban that language, which wasn't easy. Because she uses words like sugar and shoot and whatever it is. And I'm like, fuck and fuck this and fuck that, right? But trust me, when she gets in certain states, when she gets in her wood, she uses fuck and things like that too. It's rare, but she uses it. Usually if someone's threatening her family or threatening someone she loves in a way that she feels is unfair, then you will see amazing wood and fire come out together. But you need to go to her. There's a beautiful process. In fact, we'll probably do it this week a couple times. How many have heard of Ho'oponopono? Ho'oponopono. Quite a few of you. How many have not heard of it? I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about. Okay, good. So there's a gentleman, Hugh is his last name, and he's, if you're on the screen, there he is, Dr. Hugh. And he was a shaman. He was trained as a shaman in Hawaii, but he's also a social psychologist, and he worked in the prison system. And there's a prison in Hawaii, and by the way, this is a mental hospital prison, not a traditional prison. And in Hawaii, it was known because the inmates got so out of control that it was known for injuring many of the people, the doctors and some of the people, even some of the security personnel. They were out of control. And they're trying to think, do they shut down the hospital? What are they going to do? And the last psychologist working there was totally ineffective, quit. And so they hired Dr. Hugh. It's a true story. It sounds like a made-up story. It should be made into a movie because it's true. And Dr. Hugh came in, and because he had practiced this Ho'oponopono, which is a process that's taught within his particular, background as a shaman in Hawaii, and he practiced it. And here's what it is. I'll write it down, and then we'll do it later on, and perhaps we'll do it sooner than later. We'll see where it goes. But here's what it is. It's 4 phrases that you say over and over again, which sounds totally stupid, but let me explain why. there's a concept called 100% responsibility. Most of you would think 100% responsibility, go, I'm 100% responsible for what happens in my life. Well, the truth is you aren't. There are things beyond your control, true? But you are 100% responsible for your experience of your life, what it means to you, which means how it makes you feel and how you behave. You are responsible for that. Most of us, it's human nature, we beat ourselves up so much we can't take it anymore. And now we're so raw that if I rub my arm like this, no problem. But if you got gaping wounds here, someone will touch you with a cat hair and you're going to overreact. Well, what we tend to do is blame others because we first have blamed who so much? Ourselves. We beat ourselves up so much, there's nothing left. So most people have been trained now, they're so stressed, they want to blame someone else. And now it's strangers that we blame. It's people with different beliefs that we blame. It's out of fucking control with social media. But what he noticed and what they teach in his particular approach of shamanship is you can heal someone if you'll take 100% responsibility for their experience, even if you have nothing to do with it. The idea that we're all connected at some level spiritually. And that instead of making you wrong or telling you should change, whatever it is, if I can apologize to you for whatever's happened to you, no matter what it is, I am apologizing because I'm part of spirit too, that a healing can occur. And they have 4 phrases that they say over and over again. And he never met for the first 6 months with even one of the inmates. He sat in his office and read their files and practiced Ho'oponopono for 45 minutes to 30 to 45 minutes each one. And it's a fact, 70% of them were eventually released within 5 years. They eventually closed down the hospital. And he met with some of them, but not until he'd done this so many times, there was a healing. Most of you know there's something in science called mirror neurons. Mirror neurons is you can watch some people rowing, and if you're watching them and if you're connected, your body will actually go through the process. It's how you can have empathy. Some people's mirror neurons are well trained. Mine are, that's why I feel emotion for all kinds of people. I don't even know, I feel that connection. It's very well developed in me. So I can sometimes know what someone's feeling without them saying it. It's mirror neurons. It's not psychic, it's physical. Well, when you go into a state of rapport, like how many of you were at the UPW and sat next to a person and mirrored them physically, and then you felt what they were feeling, or some of you even saw what they were seeing, having never spoken to you? How many know what I'm talking about? That was mirror neurons. Well, when you go in a state of compassion, and you're thinking of someone from a compassionate place, and you're taking 100% responsibility for whatever they're feeling, and you're saying these words, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me,
Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Everyone,
I'm sorry.
I
I
love
love
you.
you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
I'm
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
You say it too.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I love you.
Please forgive me.
Thank you.
Think of your wife as you say it.
I'm sorry. I love you.
Please forgive me. Thank you.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I love you. Please forgive me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Say it with joy.
I'm sorry. I
I
love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Think of someone in your life that this would help heal. Or if they're next by, you could look in their eyes and say this. Go again. And this time say it like it's the most sacred thing you've ever spoken. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Say it like it's the most loving feeling you've ever spoken in your heart or soul. Go.
I'm sorry.
I
I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
I'm
Sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Say it with joy and excitement now. I'm sorry. I love you.
Please forgive me. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Now say it like God is speaking through you. Go.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Now close your eyes. And just feel. Now this week you'll be experiencing so many ways to change, transform, perceive things differently. Some will be favorites. Some will be so-so. You get to pick and choose. You're not limited to anyone. How many found that one to be quite useful, helpful, touching? It's not that hard. 4 fucking words, phrases, that's all you gotta do. From the heart. If those are said sincerely over and over, and if those are said looking directly into her eyes, where you're not using it as a technique, where you're just feeling her and loving her, you will melt her soul. You may have even now from a distance. How do you feel right now?
Well, my dad's here, which is a big fucking deal. And David Dean is here, who made it happen.
What's the deal with your dad?
He tried to kill himself. David found out about it and said, I'm gonna fucking get him here.
Give him a hand, that's beautiful. What is this, date with suicide? What the fuck is going on here? Jesus, you guys. You're really trying to test all my skill sets, huh?
Well, I didn't want to deal with that, and then the first 15 minutes, it's like, suicide, suicide. But he gives me the best advice ever, and I didn't take all of his advice, obviously, but I took this advice. He said, take all the decisions you ever make, add them up, they'll never equal the importance of who you decide to marry.
Yes, that's very true. And so he gave you that advice, so thank him now.
Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Big Marv. You big, strong man.
And when you were doing that, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you, did you include him in that process?
No. Well, I kind of did because, so, hear me out.
Okay, you're
Hear me out, hear me out.
It's a big job. One at a time. I have no problem with that. It's a man, one at a fucking time. I can't be doing multitasking. The fuck, you're talking about my wife. I can only think about that. Maybe in a day or two, I can do it on my dad. Give me a break.
So, I technically did because... Technically. Because...
I want to hear this description, don't you?
Because there's people in the room that know, like, like yesterday, the shit my wife is dealing with because of this fire and this crazy kid, she still loves me and is still here. So that was all I could think about during that exercise was the advice my Dave, because she's fucking strong. And
who's strong?
my wife.
Yes, of course she is.
Like,
Wood is fucking strong. Think of a fucking redwood. You
Well,
get hit with one.
She got her house burned down, and all she's thinking about is how do we build another one? I love
That's
you.
wood. That's how you know it's a wood. They're always building something. That's wood.
But I wouldn't have met her and not settled for the most extraordinary woman I possibly could have married if it wasn't for the advice from my dad.
So why don't you invite your dad over here for just 2 minutes?
Come on, Big Marv!
Come out here into the aisle. Let him hear you. Yes. Give him both a hand. Let him feel you. Joe? What were you going to say?
So he was the most badass sales trainer you've ever seen in your life. I've seen all of them. Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, all the public speakers. There's still nobody better. When I first saw him public speak, I was like, holy shit, this guy is lighting up a room. But besides, like, I don't know that there'll ever be another you.
Oh, fuck that.
But he was the second best I had ever seen.
No, seriously.
It was his dream to be on stage with you, and he
Well, there's a phrase. God's delays are not God's denials. God's delays are not God's denials. Sometimes things are not the timing we think, but they're the timing they need to be. So, Brad, Marvin, thank you for your courage in coming up here. And this little fucking bastard outed you. You want to punch him in the face, or what do you want to do right now?
I told him on the break I was going to keep my head down and look the other way when Tony came to our side of the room. And Brad's like, I'm going to get you on the stage.
Well, that was 30 minutes ago. Okay, well, that's, yeah, whatever time it really was. So, would you mind doing this process with your son? What we just did, did you do this for someone when you were just doing it just now?
Yeah,
Who did you do it for?
my son.
For your son. How beautiful is that? And we've all had moments when we felt like our life doesn't have the same meaning because what we originally dreamed of or once dreamed or once experienced is no longer happening. But there's a deeper meaning in our lives. And right when we think there is no purpose, we discover there's a much bigger one, a much deeper one. And so, grace happens in the most beautiful ways in grace, I think. What do you think?
I agree.
That means something in this universe loves you deeply and it's not going to allow you to harm what it has created. More importantly, to remember that this part of you is so powerful. When you're on those stages, I'm sure you had great skill. But I willingly bet that your desire to serve was your greatest power. I know that because I see the tears in your son's eyes when he feels he hasn't. That means everything you are that is beautiful and good, including the parts you've judged, is going to serve another generation or two. So it would be a total sin. And the word sin means miss. It doesn't mean wrong. The literal definition is miss. It'd be such a miss for you not to be able to see the next chapters as well as discover your own. And that's not going to happen, is it? I know. So let's take the grace and let's give it back. And not only give him this gift, but please take in the gift that he wants to give you and grace wants to give you. Would you be willing to do that?
Yes.
Well, let's do it. We're going to do for your dad what he deserves. We're going to make sure you penetrate his heart and his soul, not just his mind. His heart and soul knows the truth, but it needs to be reminded. The mind fucks with us all the time. But his heart and soul, you can see it, it's more powerful than the mind. And he can retrain his mind. He did it for years. He can do it again. Of course, there are things that are aggravation. There are things in my body that make me crazy that didn't used to be there, but I'm still able to serve. It doesn't feel good to be backstage throwing up when there are people going through their fifth song and I want to serve them. But fuck it, I don't care. I'll get through it. I'll make it happen. I'll find a way because there's a higher purpose in my being here, just like you. Here's one of them right here. So we're going to look into his eyes and you're going to feel his heart. And when you say these words, you're going to take 100% responsibility for any pain he's ever had, even though it may not have been created by you, and a lot of it won't be created by you. But it doesn't matter. It's your love for him that you're going to literally evaporate it by taking 100% responsibility for any pain he's had, any judgments he's had of himself, anything he didn't think he did enough. It's all going to fucking go because you're going to pull it out by taking responsibility for anything that's ever happened with joy because of your love for him. And there will be healing in him. There's already been healing in him. You can see it. So now, do the process with him. Just look at his eyes. Feel him.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Now say it like a water.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
That's it. Again.
I'm sorry.
Stay in the water.
I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Say it like it's the most sacred words you've ever spoken to your Father.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Now say it as the teenager who remembers the truth of how he saved your life.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Do that one again. That was good.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Now tell him so that he never again thinks it would be even possible to consider taking his life because it would destroy you and everyone he loves, and you won't tolerate that because you love him too much. And you'll help take away his his pain by your love.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Let God speak it through your voice now.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Now with excitement.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Now water-like.
I'm sorry. I love you.
That wasn't you guys.
Please forgive me. Thank you.
Okay. Pops, your turn. How does that feel, Marvin? How does that feel?
Feels awesome.
What are you feeling inside as he's speaking to you this way?
Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed. It's a beautiful overwhelmed.
Yeah, beautiful overwhelmed.
Do you feel how sincere it is?
Absolutely.
Do you feel how needed you are?
Yeah.
Good. Tell him. Whatever you want to tell him.
I'm sorry that the only way I could see out was to get your mom the life insurance policy to pay the bills. And sorry that I took the pills and tried to kill myself.
So your intent was for her to be taken care of.
I had $1 million life insurance policy, and I was destitute.
I understand. You're now on videotape, so if you ever do it, I'm turning over the insurance company. She'll get nothing, so we just handled that shit. It's never gonna happen in a million years. You're worth more than $1 million, brother.
You have an amazing child who reminds me of you when he was 1 year old. It's the most bright and beautiful soul I've ever seen. Thank you for bringing him into the world.
That's beautiful. More reasons to stick around. Plus, you get no money if you leave. They get no money anyway, so you might as well stick
I
around.
figured that out afterwards. The math wasn't real good on my part.
No worries. Do I love you with him now? I love you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. You're doing it outside his presence. Now look into his soul so he feels it.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Say it now from a place of joy, because you know that you come together at a new level.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Again, from that place, like it's a new beginning, then you feel the joy. And when you feel his joy, pour it back into him as you feel it.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Wow! Again.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Say this, God was speaking through you, because he is.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Say it like his mom would say it.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
One more time like his mom.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Marvin, give him a hand. Beautiful. Give him a hand for starters.
Just got enough from his life, isn't it? Giving us life. everyone else has something that's not that. Looking at the aspect and provide it. I mean, I think everyone thinks about it as some science, but when you realize how.
Create some energy in your body. Alexandra, I like your puppy dog. Oh, yes. Listen, I want to send you to dinner, but before I do, how many of you saw in the beginning this fire kid so crazy he wasn't connecting, blaming his wife? But how many saw him transform as he started to enter these places? How many could feel it? How many saw it here? Say aye. And his dad was kind of in this watery state. This kid's so intense, you could see them missing. But Hope Ono was a way to connect. So listen, we've been going full tilt. Normally on this day, we don't even take a break. But since you're all over the world in different time zones, I know you got to eat something. So I'd like you, if you would, stretch your body out. Get yourself, we're going to crank our energy for 30 seconds. And then we're going to take 30 minutes so you can get a quick bite. If you're my Australian friends, you might want to take a nap, but make sure somebody's there to wake you up, okay, so you don't miss. What we're about to do next is most important. Announcements first, and then we'll crank the energy through the roof. Announcements? Just 30 minutes?
That's it.
Okay, great. We'll see you back here in 30 minutes, but before we go, let's crank our energy through the roof.